Hello, my friends. Dorothy here. We're going to talk about the new moon solar eclipse, October 14th. It's at 21 degrees of Libra. Now, this new moon eclipse is with the south node. So it's a south node eclipse. And I'm going to explain what that means. That's just the mathematical position in the sky. When the sun is near them and the moon is with it, we have an eclipse every time. It's a partial eclipse, but we still have an eclipse. And I want to share with you, this is from NASA. You would have seen this last November in my forecast. I do a yearly forecast. If it's showing up, come on, show up. There it is. I do a yearly forecast at the end of November, right around Thanksgiving, for the year ahead. So if you want to get in on that, pay attention, go join my email newsletter right on my website, DorothyMorganAstrologer.com. And we will talk about these things and you'll get a big heads up for the major aspects for the year to come. Now, here we have, this is the solar eclipse, the annual solar eclipse on the 14th comes in through you. The shadow will be across. You'll be able to see it as well as really what it comes down to, that shadow. Oregon, Utah, Nevada, the Four Corners, right? New Mexico and Texas. And then we have another one in early April next year that starts up in the Northeast where I am. And I'll be able to see that one, and it comes through and it all crisscrosses right there at San Antonio. Austin's right there. So y'all in that area are really will be paying. When we have eclipses that cross in certain areas, you are able to see extreme situations, whether it's extreme weather. And I know you guys already had a really hot summer, especially in this whole area right here where that eclipse will be showing up on the 14th of October. I know it happened a little bit ahead of time. That's all right. It doesn't mean the next 6 months there will be more extreme weather. It could mean that there's more political upheaval. I just laugh at that because that's just everywhere. But you guys will have it more, and especially Texas. There'll be a lot of big changes going on in the Texas area, just because when eclipses are visible, so it's the solar eclipses. Lunar eclipses are visible everywhere, as long as it's nighttime when the lunar eclipse is happening. But the solar eclipses are the ones that create change. They were the ones that were super powerful. And this is what it looks like in the astrology chart for my latitude and longitude. So where you live, it might be in the 10th house or the 11th house. So we won't talk about house placements today. I don't usually talk about the energy for everybody to use. So what are we going to do with this energy? So how do we use this and what does it look like? So first off, it is a south node eclipse. That's what this little thing that looks like a horseshoe is. The other side of it is the north node in Aries. The only fire in this chart is Chiron and that north node in Aries. So there's no planets in fire at all here. So there's not a lot of get up and go. The north node is only a place in space. It's not even, it's not anything solid. So there's fire there, but there's not a lot of fire here. So no planets are in fire signs. So that means the action taken will be slow. And it will take us a little while to pick up some speed with this new moon solar eclipse. That's what that really represents. But what do we do with new moons? You know, with new moons, we basically, it's most important is that we set intentions as to what it is that we want to manifest in our worlds and in our lives. And that's not always the easiest thing to do when we have this with the south node. And the reason for that is, so we're going to focus on Libra energy to begin with, because the new moon, and so the sun and the moon, new moon, solar eclipse with the south node, all of that means is it's a solar eclipse in the sign of Libra, symbolizes this, the collective need for a release. There's a reckoning happening now. You can't deny it. And typically when we have this new moon, we're looking at initiating, and we're encouraged to set paths, set new goals for life, for growth, for manifesting and aspirations. But with this eclipse located at the south node, this indicates like a deeper lesson that's going on that we collectively are needing to process, to learn, right? So the South Node represents, it will give us, it represents our karma, our history, our past. Collectively, it just means that we are going to be focusing on this. And what it can do as well is it can even focus on the less desirable side traits, of Libra, the things that we are not that interested, that aren't that great, right? The eclipse can bring that to the front of the line. So it will accelerate those potentially undesirable Libra traits. And, it just is what it is. I know the lunar nodes stay in each sign for 18 months, but this eclipse will give that a big boost, so we can understand globally what's going on. Now you're going to find that in your own astrology chart. You'll have to do that on your own, or you can, where you can get a session if you like, where it is asking you to, if these undesirable things come up, right, which is discord, unease, feeling out of balance. Yeah, those things will come to the surface for us to, we know what we don't want. It brings to the surface what we don't want. Even though this is the new moon and we want to set goals based off of Libra qualities, we have the strength of this South Node in Libra, which is saying we're going at first, not everybody, of course, depending on your level of understanding and your level of balance and harmony in your own life, but we can see it outside of ourselves or within, what is coming to the surface first is what we don't like and what we don't want and what doesn't fit. So when we learn what we don't want, we then consciously, or even unconsciously for many people, but consciously for some of us, then we know what we do want. So when we know what we don't want, we know what we do want. Okay. And that's how an eclipse, that's the way I see it and the way I work it in my life all the time, is that when I recognize that I'm not wanting something in my life, then I can easily say, oh, well, that's why, because I want this instead. So yeah, I know these are the things that we get to work on when it comes to new moon, solar eclipse, conjunct the South Node. All right. I know. So during the new moon solar eclipse, let's find ourselves, what will we find ourselves actually focusing on and dealing with? So some of the key traits, right, with Libra is, of course, harmony and balance. So seeking that in all aspects in life. This eclipse will heighten that so we can see where we're giving too much and we're not receiving enough. Now, you guys who are Libras, sun, moon, rising, or personal planets, you tend to give a lot in partnerships and relationships and live your life based off of what everybody else needs from you. And it's not always easy for you to say no. You're going to learn about that balance and that harmony. Some of the things that we can see globally, and you might even see it in your own world, if you have some litigation or some issues going on, is diplomacy and mediation. How can I be diplomatic in a situation? Can I come to the table with my issues and have a diplomatic conversation? That certainly isn't happening here in the United States in our Congress at all. So this eclipse really shows us where it is, where that energy is heightened, and we're just seeing it. It's just absolutely in our face. And I know a lot of things are happening before this eclipse, because I'm posting this before the eclipse, and we've had quite an upheaval lately. Lately, I think it's been going on for a couple of years, but it's coming to a crescendo. It really is. It's coming to a peak. Another thing that we'll look at with the Libra new moon, and again, apply this to your own life. I mean, I'm not in a big disagreement with anybody personally right now, but I can certainly see where diplomacy could be really helpful in other people's situations. It's the benefit of living alone. You don't have to argue with anybody. If I am arguing with anybody that I live with, I need to see a shrink. Anyways, I'm making a joke. For those who don't know me, I'm a goofball sometimes. All right. Social relationships is a Libra thing. So we're going to value those. We'll see how we value them, those relationships and partnerships. Another, let's see, undesirable thing about Libra at times can be being indecisive. Just, oh, do I do this? Do I do this? We have a hard time figuring out we need to weigh the options. Libra, ruled by Venus, is aesthetic, so beauty and balance in that regard. And again, I already mentioned the people pleasing, but we need to really pay attention to that. We might be doing it too much. And sometimes as a Libra, you're just going to say things. And I have many family members that are Libras, and I don't think anybody watches it. So I'm just going to talk about them. Oh, they'll love me for this. Let's see, mother, 2 siblings, 2 grandchildren, are all Libras. So you guys will just avoid conflict. You'll avoid conflict at all costs until you get really feisty, and then you won't. Then you'll speak up for yourself. But you have to, the scales have to be so out of balance when you finally speak up for yourself. So I've experienced that personally with family members. I have nothing in the sign of Libra, but I see it and I understand it, right? So I want you to remember that's quite a long list, and that list is written out. It's on my blog, which is on my website, DorothyMorganAstrologer.com. Get on my newsletter email list. You'll get it in the inbox. And you get this early on if you're here on page. If you're on Patreon, it does go to YouTube after Patreon. So all kinds of ways to stay in touch and to connect and to ask questions if you have more questions than what I'm giving you answers for here, even though you haven't asked me any questions. All right. Let's see. What else do I have to talk about here? Go back to the screen. There we go. Let me make sure. There we go. I just want to make sure I had the chart up. So when we have this, what else do we have going on here? I think what happens now over the next 6 months or so, I mean, new moons, you guys who follow me over in Patreon, I talk about the lunar gestation cycle. Talk about it in the full moon forecast a lot here too. That's a 3-year cycle, and it starts with every new moon. Now, every new moon isn't like a big deal for everybody, but let me tell you, when we have the solar eclipses, you really need to pay attention. You really need to write things down. That is going to be so important for us. This eclipse, as you can see, is right next to Mercury, right? That is important. That means we need to write this information down. We need to write out how we are feeling. So over the next few months, and especially 6 months or so, because we'll have another eclipse. Well, in 2 weeks, we'll have another eclipse. But that'll be a full moon lunar eclipse. We'll talk about that then. It'll be 5 degrees of Taurus, I think. Give me a second. Did I misspeak? I did not. It is at 5 degrees of Taurus. Back to this. So over the next few months, as this new moon eclipse unfolds, it's really going to become important for us to each pay attention and dive a little bit deeper into our partnerships and our relationships, just especially the ones that, those relationships that play a big role in our lives. It's just definitely important, whether it's personal or professional. Just keep that in mind, because we just really want to pay attention to that. And since Venus is the ruler of this Libra new moon, and Venus for 4 months this year has just barely left Leo. She was in Leo since June through October. That stirred up a lot of issues and a lot of dynamic in partnerships and relationships. So it could very well be that this Libra new moon gives all of us an opportunity to smooth over some surfaces if we need to do that. So new moon eclipse with the South Node, we covered that. New moon eclipse with Mercury in Libra, communication, information, definitely having those conversations, super important. The ruler of Libra is Venus. She's been retrograde. She was retrograde this year for months. So there would have been a lot of issues coming to the surface throughout the summer, June through early October. And now we have an opportunity here to work through this. We also have Mercury opposite Chiron during this eclipse, and that's an opportunity to move past, beyond, if you will, wounds and having conversations. I know there's a few degrees away from each other, but there's an opportunity to work through wounds and start to heal them over the next few months. And it will be Libra related, where you're personally injured or wounded coming to the surface. I know we're in such a time of a fair amount of discord and upheaval. A lot of quincunxes through the astrology. Again, over my Patreon, I do the weekly forecast, and we've been doing, there's just been tons and tons of the quincunx aspect, and it's these green lines right here. And we actually have a yod in the chart of this eclipse. It looks like this little isosceles triangle, and it's with Uranus and Neptune. And that adds another component to this astrology. That was the nerdy piece right there. So the yod is two quincunxes going to the same point from two different places. It's 3 elements, 2 polarities, and 3 elements, 2 polarities, and 3 modalities, meaning there's nothing alike. There's nothing alike. The yod, especially when the moon is at the apex of it, and this time the moon and the sun, it's latent energy, it's hidden energy. We're restless, we feel insecure. We need to figure out, what is it that we're learning? We're needing to learn to integrate and to bring things together. We're learning to integrate the Uranian energy, which is what it represents, the energy of change and innovation. I know Uranus is retrograde, but it's change and information and innovation. I mean, change and innovation. And we're this new moon in Libra is asking us to release old patterns and cycles of partnerships, relationships, the way we see, the way we receive that information from others. Venus rules Taurus too, by the way, rules Libra, rules Taurus. So Venus has got a big play in here, even though she's just hanging out over here in Virgo, picking at all the details. She's not physically part of this eclipse, but she is the ruler of the eclipse. And that just lets us know that there is definitely a deeper level. I know I'm going deep today, a deeper level and some deeper insight that is happening with this new moon solar eclipse. So then we have it making that quincunx down there to Neptune. And so that's like, it's like our dreams, it's insight, it's energy, spirituality, and just allowing things to flow. But none of it felt like flowing, did it? None of it feels like flowing, but it's asking us to do that. So we're trying to discern the difference between reality and illusion, and it's definitely not an easy task. And that's what this new moon solar eclipse represents. And you can read this forecast word for word. It's a couple pages long over on my blog. I think I'll stop the share. There's always so much more, but I think I'll leave us with that because I went kind of deep, and I hope hey, if you're still here, thank you. Thank you for staying to the end of this. And hey, the only way I can grow here, well, Patreon, yeah, I can grow, yeah. Share. You can't share this if it's on Patreon. You can share it if it's by the time I get it over to YouTube. You can share it there. So share it, comment, and let me know, because I always answer. It's always me. Anyways, I think I'll leave us with that. Thank you guys, and blessings. Namaste.